is a 268-mile linear national trail stretching along the Pennine Hills, starting in Edale in Derbyshire, the Peak District National Park, and stretching up to Kirkyettam in the Scottish borders. Today we're on Black Hill in the Peak District National Park on the Pennine Way.
I started working for the Peak District National Park in '91, and I was employed then to try and put the Pennine Way right, because what was happening, we had 45 miles of Pennine Way in the Peak District that was basically just a complete bog. No decent path at all, no clear route to follow, and the moorlands in a very sorry state.
I first started walking the Pennine Way in the very early 80s, and I wasn't used to the dark peat. I was trying to navigate using a Wainwright book and no map, and the peat was waist deep, and trying to get out of it, it was quite an experience and totally disorientating.
Before the restoration work here on Black Hill, it was an extremely hostile landscape for nature. Extensive areas of bare peat with nothing growing on them, no plants, which meant that it wasn't able to sustain populations of really any wildlife.
So back in the 1990s I was taken on, it was a joint project between the Peak District National Park and the Countryside Commission that was then, or is now Natural England, and we put a line of flags down the middle, but that's only half of the job. The other half of the job was to try and get back and restore the 100-metre wide swathe of bare peat there was either side of the flagstone. All very experimental in those days. We hadn't really got a clear idea of how to do this, but we had some really good partnership work with English Nature, as was now Natural England, and the moorland owners, you know, United Utilities, Yorkshire Water and the National Trust. We had a really good partnership effort to try and come up with a plan to try to not only make it better for people to walk on, so you could actually walk the Pennine Way with some semblance of progress, but also to restore all the habitats either side. One of the things about the Pennine Way project, and then how that morphed into the Moors for Future project with the Heritage Lottery bid, was that we were able to bring what in those days were quite considerable sums of money. So when I was used to working with volunteers, everything on the Never Never, you know, to get substantial sums of money in was what was absolutely needed to deal with this landscape-wide problem that we had here.
Around 2005-2006, restoration work in terms of revegetation of the bare peat here on Black Hill started. So that was a collaboration between Moors for the Future and various other partners. And that restoration work started, like I say, with revegetation, so bringing plants back in. That stabilised the really mobile, fragile peat surface, and that enabled more sort of natural native species to come in, so different grasses, heather, bilberry, different dwarf shrubs. And that slowly has started a succession process, which is still continuing today.
So I got involved in this because I am looking for case studies which highlight where a national trail has been looked at as wider than the trail itself, but the corridor and what that can do for nature recovery. And when I heard about this project, I thought this is a fantastic example of what some innovative thinking, supported by partnership working and funding, has led to a massive nature restoration project, which is ongoing today through Moors of the Future.
Projects like this are really important for national trails. National trails, we want as many people as possible to come out and be able to enjoy them, but we need to balance that the people accessing the trails with the protection of the land that they're passing over as well. Projects like this are going to enable more people to access the trails and to experience the landscapes through which they pass.
Getting out to the Pennine Way for me has meant so much. It's not just the physical. You feel as though you're in the heart of nature, and you do really feel as if you're in a real wilderness area. You might only be a few yards or metres from the Snake Summit, but I love it when the mist comes down, you know, and you just really feel you're out there in the elements. And then on a glorious day, the sound of the birds, the different bird song, the golden plover, the curlew, and just looking, you know, at the different grasses and all the different mosses, the heather, the bilberry, everything. There's so much to discover, there really is.
Funding for national trails is really, really critical in ensuring that they're well maintained and that we meet those national trail standards. And a project like this, external funding was really, really important, and it was a massive project when it was done. And securing those sorts of levels of funding now, it's not impossible, but it's challenging. And I think moving forwards, it's certainly achievable if we work in partnership, if we share our knowledge, if we look for alternative sources of funding, then we can certainly take some of the learning from this project and apply it to future projects and ensure our trails are well maintained and accessible for as many people as possible, whilst also protecting nature.